Welcome to Breakaway Rail Talk, the Sweet 16 episode. Today, we are going to get a chance to get to know better and talk to Shannon Arvin, Keeneland's 8th president and CEO. Talk to her about what's going on, everything Keeneland, racing, sales, what to expect, when is there going to be a Breeders' Cup there again, and everything in between. You don't want to miss this show. Let's watch. Breakaway Rail Talk is, of course, sponsored by Aryan Pedigrees. Why is Aryan Pedigrees the place to go when it comes to looking up pedigrees? Well, I can tell you from personal experience that whenever I want to do a projected mating, an elongated pedigree to go 5, 6, even 7 generations back, Aryan Pedigrees is my place to go. It is my go-to website. That website, of course, is arion.co.nz for Aryan Pedigrees. I use it all the time. Projected matings, what's going on in the horse business, maybe even an updated pedigree like, let's say for Sandman, for example, after he wins a grade 1, Aryan Pedigrees is the way to go, arion.co.nz. So I wanted to welcome our best guest ever on Breakaway Rail Talk, and that is Shannon Arvin, Keeneland's 8th president and CEO. And the reason why I say that she's our best guest ever, in advance of our conversation, is that Shannon and I have had multiple conversations, and every single time I've walked away and been educated and been like, wow, that was a great thought that Shannon just gave me. So Shannon, thank you so much for not only being on the show, but for being able to share all these great ideas with our audience in advance.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
So let's get right into it. Since you took over in 2021, a lot of changes, a lot of things going on, both culturally and physically at Keeneland. Can you just walk the audience through some of the changes that you've implemented, in construction and also just in overall feel at the sales?
Yeah, I mean, since I got here, we have basically a whole new team than the one that was here before. We've had a lot of awesome people work at Keeneland through the years, people that have really devoted their whole lives to making this place better and to making the sport better. And when I came on, it was time to kind of refresh the team. So that's exactly what we did. So since I came on, we brought Tony Lacey on as head of sales and Cormac Brannock, who is director of sales operations. Both work really hard, do a great job. And then Gatewood Bell as racing. So we kind of talk about how we have certain bottoms of the stool, and that's our stool. So it's been really fun to dream and build with them. And anytime you start something new, you get a chance to kind of reimagine how things ought to be. And on top of that, COVID had just happened. So it was kind of a completely fresh start. So we really did take a chance to step back and say, okay, what should this be? This is what this has been since 1936. And it's amazing. We all see ourselves as stewards of Keeneland. How do we make it better? So we really, as a team, have spent a lot of time talking about that. And that's what actually led to the construction project that you see right outside in the paddock. And you'll see it when you're here this spring. We had a session and said, okay, if the sycamore tree were a money tree, what could we do? Like if money weren't an issue, what could we do? And there were some great ideas like, we need to put the grandstand in the other direction because we're directly in the sunlight in the afternoon. That ended up not being so feasible. But we really did want a space that lets people enjoy the races, participate in the sales, enjoy their time at the sales in a different way. You know, there's so many spots at Keeneland where, like when my mother comes to the races, she sits at a table and she watches the races on a TV and hardly goes out. Now, I think you've got people that just want different opportunities. So with this new clubhouse build, the new construction building, paddock building, you'll have the opportunity to, one room is not a seated place. You get cocktails and appetizers, and you get access to the north paddock to be close to the horse, which we think is critically important, and just some different fun hospitality experiences. And that's really been a theme since we've been here. This is a tremendous sport. Part of what makes it, the most important part is the horse, obviously. But another aspect that makes it so special is the people that you get to be around and the relationships you develop. And there are a lot of people who have other day jobs, and this is fun for them. So we want to be sure that we deliver on that.
Yep, and you can see it not only in the changes physically that you guys have implemented, but also just from an end user like myself as a buyer, I see the culture has changed,
Mhm.
and it's much more user friendly, and it's much more with people centric. People are coming up to you and saying, "Can I get you something? Can I take care of something? Can I?" And that has been kind of a change. That is definitely come through. Has that been your mantra also? Is that we want to make this a better experience for the people that are involved?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question. This should be a fun experience, whether you're here on Saturday morning with your kids, watching the horses work and eating a donut, or spending a lot of money in the sales pavilion, or hoping to make a lot of money in the sales pavilion. I mean, from every aspect, when you come to Keeneland, you ought to feel welcome and important, because everybody that walks through this door is part of a bigger ecosystem that
Yep.
we need to keep healthy.
Yeah, and for those of you at home who are listening, there have been things physically like changing the auction area where there's tables now, so you can sit and have your computer and you can bid, on the internet, or you can bid live. They serve you food and drinks. There's also common rooms that you can go to have small breakout meetings. It really is almost like it's a business center. And then, oh, by the way, there's an auction going on as well. It almost like an airport club,
Mhm.
where you can get food and drinks, and there's a feel good kind of open access to it. And I know you've used the term open architecture
Mhm.
before,
Mhm.
so if you just want to kind of expound on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I got here, we are a traditional place, and our traditions are part of what makes this sport so amazing. But not all of our traditions are good. So we talked about, our mission, which has been since 1936 to perpetuate the very best in racing and sales, and to do what's right by the thoroughbred, by the community, and by the people in our communities.
Mhm.
And we're unusual in how we're constructed, because our founder said, okay, nobody's ever going to get rich off Keeneland. So we act like a nonprofit. There are no dividends paid to shareholders, because if there were, the whole mechanism of how you think about what you do changes. So it's really a blessing to work at a place like that. But
Right.
with all that tradition, you think, okay, we want to take the best of our traditions and move forward. But you're also messing with tradition, which sometimes gets you in trouble. So a lot of people, with the sales pavilion, for example, it hadn't really been updated since 1969. So we knew that it needed to be updated, but we didn't want it to look like it was built just a couple years ago. So we did take a lot of thought to say, okay, what would make this more user friendly? What helps the acoustics? I learned a new occupation, which is an acoustician. I didn't know
Oh,
there
sure.
was such a thing,
Everyone.
but
Yeah.
we had an acoustician come in and say, okay, is this gonna mean that nobody can hear themselves think if they're in the back of the sales pavilion at a table?
Right.
Are the auctioneers going to be able to hear what they need to hear? So we tried to do it very carefully, but keep that open architecture, and keep that. You may have noticed we widened the hallways, because it was
Yes.
kind of always a bottleneck. So we
Mhm.
want that circulation. We want people to feel like they've got a spot to come sit in the pavilion anytime that they're in there.
Right, right. No, you can definitely feel it. You can definitely feel that it's much more user friendly. I didn't have that major at Lehigh. I'm sure you didn't have that major at UNC as far as
Mm-mm.
an OCU.
No,
I
I
guess.
did not.
Yeah,
No. I'm
it's
glad
a good
somebody
thing.
does it, though.
Somebody doesn't and did it very well.
Yeah.
Absolutely did it very well. And then let's talk a little bit about kind of the new phase of sales, which is the brick and mortar versus the online
Mhm.
digital. Keeneland has been, a little bit more steadfast when it comes to the brick and mortar, and the results are there that you guys have done very, very well. What do you think of online? Is Keeneland considering having, a bigger online footprint in the future?
Yeah, we are. And I think we all were forced online during COVID.
Right.
And we worked with a company, and we did have monthly digital sales initially. And then we found that it was probably too early for that.
Hmm.
And there is definitely a time and a place for digital sales. I mean, it provides a service to our customers who may not want to hold a horse until September or November or January, whatever it may be. I think they work really well for dispersal sales.
Right.
So there's definitely a time and place, and you'll see us out there real soon.
Okay. Good, good.
But we
Let's.
also feel so strongly about the importance of maintaining the brick and mortar and those connections, because
Mhm.
I think it's dangerous for our business to become so transactional
Yeah.
that you lose that excitement and energy. And so we're just very cautious about keeping the brick and mortar kind of the big show, because I think there are people, we have people from over 40 countries who come, and you've been to enough. I mean, you've been to a lot of sales, so you kind of see the same people from all over the world, and
Right.
those are important relationships and connections that I think would be a real shame to lose.
No, there really is, and there's something to be said for being at the place, being at the location, and you need to have face-to-face conversations with people, because even if you're not talking about a horse coming in the ring, it's going to beget other conversations that may bear fruit down the road. And I think that's one of the things that's missing from the online feeling, is that you don't get that adrenaline rush. You don't get that pressing palms with people, or saying, oh, I just saw Jon Green, let me talk to him about whatever it is. And you lose that when we're all kind of like in our basements, bidding on horses. Is
Right.
that part of the philosophy as well?
Definitely. And
Yeah.
I think like anything, we go through cycles, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of have, even with emails, I joke sometimes, and I tell people who work here all the time, I'm like, don't send an email if you can just walk to the office next
Right.
door. We've got to maintain those human connections, because so many other good results come from them. But also, it's really hard to be a jerk to somebody if you're sitting across the table from them looking in the eyes. I noticed that when I practiced law
Challenge accepted.
for
I'll work on that. Yeah.
18 years too. Um, so I just think those human connections are important.
Yeah, no question about that. Let's talk a little bit about the excitement that's right, down the immediate calendar, and that's the upcoming meet. You have a huge weekend coming up. What should people expect in racing and in hospitality for opening weekend?
We always love spring racing. The weather is always a little more questionable in spring racing than it is in fall racing, honestly, in Kentucky. So we're spending a lot of time looking at the weather right now. As
Yeah.
Gatewood says to me often, it's an outdoor sport, Shannon. We just got to go with the weather, which is absolutely true. But we've got a tremendous lineup this weekend. We've got our Bluegrass Ashland on Friday. Our Central Bank Ashland on Friday, and then Toyota Bluegrass on Saturday. Both preps for the first weekend in May with the Oaks and Derby, with 200 Derby Oaks and Derby points being awarded to those. Those are always really exciting for us. We are definitely ready to have an Oaks and Kentucky Derby winner again coming out of those races, and have strategically timed them. So remember, it used to be that the Bluegrass was a week later.
Yeah.
So years ago, we put it back to that first weekend so that it can be a good Derby prep. We've upped the purses on both of those. The Bluegrass is up to 1.25 million, and the Ashland is up to 750,
Wow.
which is exciting, and I think is going to bring some really strong fields. The purse structure in Kentucky is so strong right now, and we are so fortunate to be able to offer those purses. But I think it's so much more than that too. And we focus a lot on that when people come for the races, not just as a patron, but definitely if you're bringing your horse here to run. I mean, we want it to be really fun to win at Keeneland. We want you to want that julep cup as much as you want the purse money, because it's such a good experience and will bring back such good memories. So we are looking forward to a lot of that this weekend. We've got 5 stakes races on Saturday. So it's going to be a tremendous weekend, rain or shine.
No, it really is. And one of the things that I'm always excited about, aside from the stake races, are the baby races.
Mm-hmm.
You have, I think there's like 5, or 6
Mm-hmm.
different baby races
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to run. And it looks like that those races usually get oversubscribed. I'm always amazed at just how many good horses come out of those April races. Is that your most exciting part of the meet? Or is the stake races what is the most exciting race for you, where when you look in the calendar, you go, oh, it's blank day?
Yeah. I've always loved the Beaumont, which we run on Sunday, which is a 7 furlong filly race. And I that was one that when I was dabbling in the horse business a little bit, I always wanted to win. I always thought it would be really fun to win the Beaumont. it's every aspect. I probably get more excited about the stakes races just because there's a little more history about what we're looking for, and it's fun to follow them. But one of the really fun aspects to me about being at Keeneland is that you've got sales and racing, so it's all connected. You automatically, you have your friends that you're rooting for, obviously, and your connections that you want to do really well. But then you're also rooting on your sales grads, and they go on to perform on the biggest stages. But it's the most fun to me when I get to watch them come through our sales ring, win on our racetrack, and then go back through our sales ring.
Yeah, it's almost like a kid, right? You see them graduate and then walk to get the diploma and everything. Yeah,
absolutely.
It is always fun. Can we expect to see a Breeders' Cup again in the near future at Keeneland?
I think we will definitely. When we were building when we conceived of the paddock building and we're thinking about opportunities for it, it makes so much sense. It makes more sense. It's easier for us to host a Breeders' Cup now. It will be when that building is finished because it's seating for over 1,100 people without having to build a temporary facility. And the temporary facilities were great and we really enjoyed them, but they're not as great as a permanent structure. I think it's hard to make them as special as that. So that's definitely part of the plan. We don't know exactly when yet, but Drew and I chat regularly, and I expect it'll happen.
Does it have a direct effect when you guys have the Breeders' Cup, whether it's at Keeneland or just in Kentucky? Is there a direct financial effect to the first couple of days of the breeding stock sale if the Breeders' Cup is in Kentucky?
Yes, there definitely are. I think it just builds that excitement.
Yeah.
And that's another reason we started the championship sale last year, and we'll continue to do that too, which is the Wednesday before Breeders' Cup, because there is so much excitement. And one of the aspects of the championship sale that I loved is that it really was additive. It grew the pie. It gave an opportunity to sell and an opportunity to buy when it wasn't there previously.
Right.
And so in addition to being, I think, an augmentation to an already really exciting week, I've always loved the aspect that you're really creating another opportunity and some
absolutely. And what's like the perfect horse for that sale?
It's interesting. We sold a quarter of Gold Phoenix last year. That was a lot of fun. So, it's ideal when there's a partnership like that wants to sell a piece and just take some chips off the table, because theoretically that horse could be worth more on Wednesday than he or she is on Sunday. So that's an ideal scenario.
And you have that turnkey ability where if you buy a piece of a horse that's already entered in the Breeders' Cup, you're immediately jumping on a plane and getting a great chance to have a return on investment, I would think.
It's instant action. Yeah. Return on investment and fun. So, and I think that's been an interesting evolution of the partnerships, which you know very well. Some people are investing because they're really hoping to make money. Some people are investing not so much that they have to make money on it, but they want the fun. They want the experience. So I think the championship sale definitely provides that too.
Absolutely. And from an economic standpoint, what's an indicator for you that maybe the sale is going to be positive or it's going to be a little bit of a struggle? Is it number of credit applications? Is it the amount of credit? Is it hotel reservation? What analytics do you guys look at?
We watch all of that. We definitely watch credit apps. We start watching those really closely, and Brent Hacker, our head of sales accounting, keeps us in the loop on those, and that helps us kind of know who to expect and know if there's somebody new coming in town that we need to be sure that we are reaching out to and making sure that they have everything they need. For September in particular, we get a pretty good sense through our inspections because our team's out there inspecting over 3,000 yearlings. So it gets fun to talk to them and hear their excitement. I've been here, as you said, since 21, so I'm more intimately involved in it now. And there are some years they're like, I don't know about this. This isn't the best crop. And then there are some years that they say, oh my gosh, you should go to this farm and look at these yearlings because you're not going to believe how lights out they are. This is a really strong crop. So that gives us an indication too, even just the quality of the individuals that we're looking at. And then the foal count is something that we are watching very closely. We have not seen it deeply impact any of our brick and mortar sales to date. But we definitely, it needs to be stabilized. I don't know that we need to be back at 37,000 like we were in 2000, I think some contraction was healthy because there were a lot of non-commercial mares that were being bred that maybe didn't need to be bred. So I think definitely some contraction was healthy, but I do hope we can find a way to stabilize where we are.
Yep. Okay. Last question for you. If you could be czar for a day of all of the industry, what would you change?
That's a great question.
Don't say you want to have a podcast, because it's not that financially.
No, and I would not want to be the commissioner either. What I do think is really important, though, and I see more consensus on it now than I ever have in the time that I've been around this sport. We need some centralization of what's really critical in the business. HISA is not perfect. I think they're working really hard at it. I think it's going to continue. We're going to continue to see it improve. But for so long, there couldn't be consensus among people in the industry because there were disagreements about medication issues. Lasix was like a lightning rod issue. So now that we have HISA in place, and I do hope it stays in place through the Supreme Court process, I think there's so much else that we agree on, like the need for a concerted joint PR effort, the need for, people say national marketing. When NTRA started in like 1999, they actually had $30 million a year for advertising. I don't know that we have $30 million a year now or that we need it, but there's so many other ways you can market now with TikTok and influencers and potentially viral content. And I feel like we have so much to offer. I think we just need to show people in a very concerted effort how fun this sport is and make them want to be a part of it.
Yeah, no question about it. We talk all the time about contraction and it stinks for the people that are involved that have to relocate or have to find a new job. But it's a necessary part of all economies, is that you can't just keep growing. Eventually you have to, you have to cut and you have to pull back. And I think, what you're saying is 100% right. Contraction, but a focused contraction with a focused marketing plan to help promote the industry is a great idea. So I'm going to nominate you to be czar of the industry, if that's okay. Okay, because I know you have extra time.
I think a healthy ecosystem is so important too. We don't need just a strong Kentucky. We need strong regional markets. We need strong New York, strong Florida, strong California, strong Illinois. So I think there are lots of opportunities. And it's also indicative of that, how much money people are putting into the sport right now. If you think about the billions of dollars, honestly, that are being invested at Churchill and here and New York for Beaumont, those are really strong, exciting projects and reasons to be optimistic.
Absolutely. So with that, I'm gonna put a pin in this great interview. Thank you so much for your time, Shannon. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you and the rest of the Keeneland team this weekend, opening weekend at Keeneland. Great card of racing. I think you guys are going to be drawing in the next 24 hours so we can get a much more crystallized view of exactly who's going to be running. But it's always worthwhile not only to be there opening weekend, but really the entire meet. And Shannon, I can't thank you enough for spending time with me. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on. We look forward to seeing you this weekend.